Welcome to Subtext Discourse. My name is Michael Dooney, Director of Jarvis Dooney Galerie, Berlin. This next interview is the first of three recorded during the recent Berlin Art Week, which this year coincided with Germany's largest photo festival, the European Month of Photography. We organised three exhibitions that are a part of the official programme. At the Künstlerhaus Bethanien until the end of October, you can see The Wanderer Upon a Castle Came by photomedia artist Anna Zahalka, which she produced during her artist residency in Berlin in 1986. At the Australian Embassy, Germany, we have select work from conceptual artist Derek Kreckler. And finally, at Jarvis Dooney Galerie, we're presenting Kate Robertson and a long-term project recording the medicinal plants of CY Bougainville. Kate Robertson is an artist we've been exhibiting since 2014 when we presented a series Celestial Body Model during a Transcendental Abstract Photography Group exhibition. Since then, we've curated work from her Dust Landscape series and Cosmic Walks into other shows. However, this will be her first solo exhibition with us and her first international solo exhibition. To mark the occasion, she made the trip over to Berlin and, respecting the culturally sensitive nature of the project, which we'll hear more about soon, she brought her husband, Bougainville representative and director of the Kanaka Project, Dr. Jeffrey Noro, with her. So for those of you who missed them in Berlin, you can have a chance to hear them in conversation with me now. How did the whole thing come about? Because I know Alex couldn't make it over, but Alex invited you to the island, or?
Yes. So the Alex Dawia, who's a chief from the CY region of Bougainville, from the Talupu Moiku clan, he saw some of my Dust Landscape series, and he really resonated with how I was engaging in community contexts and then recontextualizing or representing community in photographic forms. And that series was done in 2012. And after a bit of time, Alex and I getting to know each other in 2013, he invited me to go to CY and document the medicinal plants from his region. And one of the purposes was that he was getting concerned that the traditional knowledge was becoming fractured due to globalization and digital technology. And he saw that a photographic project could be something positive for the people. And then it also could be preservation of language as well, and cultural values. I guess when Alex first invited me to go to CY, the initial invitation kind of sparked the conversations about how we would actually go about it. We didn't want to rush it because I guess the sensitivities around the material and the knowledge. And then also for me, it was really important to take time given, concerns about photography being utilised in community contexts other than my own. So that was something that we wanted to just slowly negotiate as well to work out the best way to go about it.
So the actual way that the project was executed was from the very beginning a collaborative process. Because if I think about the Dust Landscapes, from what I know and how I describe it, is it's kind of an experiential documentary or style of work, in that you're incorporating parts of what you lived in the place with seeing the people, and then incorporating that within the photographic work. How did you come to the idea then to do the Lumen prints for this series?
So for the first, we actually didn't travel to CY until 2015.
Wow, okay.
Yes, so it was quite a bit of time where we just kept on talking about how we were going to go about it. Jeffrey Noro, who is here today from the Rura clan, Jeff was actually studying in Sydney at the time.
Yeah.
And I guess through the Bougainville way of communicating, even though Alex and Jeff had never met, they knew of each other. And I remember Alex saying, I know that there's a Bougainville person that's studying up in New South Wales at Sydney, and it would be great to get him involved in the project as well.
Yeah.
So in that time, Jeff came on as well. In terms of the first time that I went there in 2015, one of the things that I really wanted to think about on that trip was that maybe this is a really good opportunity for me just to experience the place as well.
Yeah.
I was very concerned as a photographer not being not understanding the place to be able to make work from it. So the first time I went over there, I took my camera, my 4.5 camera. I took some cyanotypes. I also took like my mobile phone camera, digital SLR, and it was just to really play with
so there was
processes.
no concrete plan at the beginning. It was just to explore, to discover, and to see what kind of came out of the process. Yeah, what came out. And I guess there was, when I think back to it, there was 3 kind of real important components that came forward from that trip. The first one was the heat of the place, so the actual environment. I remember when I got off the plane from Booker, which is where the plane travels into from Port Moresby. And as soon as I got off the plane, I was just like, this huge gulf of hot air just kind of hit me, and I felt really compressed. I felt really insignificant in this, very foreign environment. It had a really lasting impact on me, and it was something that kept kind of resonating and coming back throughout the whole trip. And particularly like when you think about photography used in places where there is a lot of humidity and a lot of heat, it's actually quite a difficult feat to work within. And so I really wanted to work with a process that didn't try and push against the environment, but to work in harmony with it. So the Lumen process was a really great opportunity to, use the heat and the kind of the water in the air to help make the exposures happen. The Lumen process as well, I decided on that. This has all happened after I got back from the first trip. Oh, how long were you there for the first time?
I was there for a month.
A month, okay.
Yes.
And did Jeff travel as well, or you were still in Sydney?
No, I was in the village, back then, 2015.
Okay.
So I was in the village when Kate and Alex, they came around.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing that really, 2 other factors that really kind of resonated with me from that first trip as well was the communal aspect of living, which Jeff, I'm sure, can talk much more eloquently about it than me.
Yeah, so the community at Kanaka, that's where Kate collected most of the stuff. It's
so
kind
Kanaka
of
is part of CY?
Yeah, it's Kanaka. So Kanaka is within CY. It's a village community within the CY district. So it's a lot of the communities in Bougainville actually very small, like very micro communities. From some of the villages can be anywhere from 20 to 20 people to maybe 200 people. So the Kanaka community has around 200 people, and it's all one family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just a family that makes up a village, and then with all the other relatives who actually come through marriage. So the village is actually constructed in a way that a family who actually live within the boundaries of their customary land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is your land, and then this is where you live within the villages, and you may also share the land boundary, with other village communities who also happen to be family groups. Within that village, you have your great grandparents, the grandparents, and the mom and dad, and all the kids.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very closed sort of community because it's just one family. Mm-hmm. So within these communities, what you have is this is just a lot of sharing. That is kind of the I think really breaking it down, like what we mean by the community context is really that. So my great grandmother is still.
Your great grandmother is still alive. Wow. Okay.
She's still alive. I think she's been through the world wars but she becomes like my great grandmother becomes the pillar.
Yeah.
She's the pillar in the community. She's the, everyone sort of gathered around her. That's where the strength in the community comes from, because she has all the stories, the genealogy, and because the ownership of the land and the resources is actually based on genealogy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, a lot of this knowledge, the genealogy is all through oral.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is actually done through songs. Yeah. Oh. They actually, chants that actually tell stories and genealogy from so many years back. And that is really important traditional knowledge, information that you actually hold as a power in the community. But, unfortunately, a lot of it is actually not written. And I've also kind of, I did write down the family tree, which actually gives the family position. But these things are very important kind of in the work that we're doing with the medicinal plants, because you need to operate within that sort of community dynamics and relationships and understanding in order for this work to actually happen.
I mean, I guess hearing this now, I can see why it would take a long time, really, just to get integrated within the community and to kind of understand the process.
Yeah.
How was it then? How was it at the start then, I guess, when Alex took you over and said, here's a lady from Australia that I've brought to document these medicinal plants. Like, how was the initial, that's a culture shock. It's a culture shock coming to Europe, so going to Bougainville. I mean, just beyond the heat, like you're saying, when you get out of the aeroplane, but going to the village and to meet everybody, especially as a family, you're really an outsider.
Absolutely. And I think carrying on from that, not having much written down, it was very much experiencing and understanding as I went, and actually giving in to not knowing and being okay with that as well, because there are a lot of customs and cultural ways that that is very complex over there, and I know that I will never ever comprehend it. That's actually just how rooted in many layers the culture is over there. So I guess in the beginning on that first trip, it was very much about allowing Chief Alex and for Chief Jeff to take me under their wing. So there were the weather, the environment was a very difficult thing to embrace in the beginning, to be constantly sweating. Then also, I guess even things like where to wash, that was a new thing that I wasn't too sure how that was going to go about. So the women will wash in a certain part of the river.
So the other thing that, like, when every time sort of a visit comes to the community, you have to introduce the person to the spirits.
Okay.
Yeah, to the spirits in the forest, where you have to communicate with them and say, look, we have a visitor who's coming to the community, who's going to be walking around, in the forest. So that actually they accept, anyone who comes into the community, and so it's basically also kind of protection from any spirits.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the spirits can get angry with anyone new who's not from there to actually go into the forest.
So
was there a kind of, a welcoming ritual or something that had to take place?
Yeah. So usually what happens is you talk to, before going into the forest, you need to talk to the spirits, like you call out and say, look, we're here with Kate, and she's from, she's come with Jeff, and Jeff is, he's like this and this and this. So it's really explaining the relationships. So I think relationship there is very, very important. That's why the genealogy is really key. So, they would say, oh, Jeff is related like this, or so it goes all the way.
Yeah.
So you communicate with them, and then, it's kind of the clearance. And that's when you walk into the forest.
Wow. Okay.
And do a lot of this work. Yeah.
So that was so this all happened in the first month.
Yes. Well, there's a bit more to that story, though. I was waiting. I'm waiting for Jeff to...
So apparently, when you came in there, her ears were like aching.
This is on the first trip.
Okay. Yeah. So her ears started aching, and we were like, "What's happened?" So we decided, something must be wrong. Like, so we got one of the prayer ladies in the village. So she came and prayed, and they would see the visions and stuff. And she was like, "Oh, you guys," because we didn't introduce Kate. It's like an oversight. So when we first went there, we didn't introduce Kate to the spirits. So it was like my failure.
Oh.
Actually, kind of, because anyway, they prayed and said, the spirits actually slapped her ears.
Oh, right.
She wasn't introduced. That's why the ears have been aching.
Yeah, but then after that, like.
Yeah. So
okay?
So after the prayer and everything, sort of.
Yes. So this is as a photographer that's really wanting to make work that is quite responsive to place and people, and also being respectful to cultural customs and values.
Yeah.
All of this is happening in a space where I haven't been able to prepare properly. It's just
How
can you know?
So the other thing is, within this community, Christianity came in. Then they kind of, a lot of the rituals, a lot of the practices, they kind of, sort of stopped people from doing all those things. So I think I'm kind of also coming from that space where, I didn't really want to kind of believe in, that spirituality, but I guess it's there. So you can kind of avoid it.
But I think that was on my first trip, when I was taken into the forest, and then the earache was actually really bad.
Yeah.
That I ended up in a local hospital. I was treated with traditional medicine, but I think because I don't have the right bugs to work in that environment.
Like your immune system.
System, yeah.
So I ended up going to a local hospital, and that was quite an insight into, I guess, the lack of new medicine that is available, and that also opened up again, I guess, experiences that informed how I made the work.
Yeah.
So going to the hospital, and people have said to me, "Well, didn't the traditional medicine work?" And for me, it's not about that. It's about if these communities want to be able to have their traditional medicine, but then also have access to new medicine, then that should be able to happen. And so when I went to the hospital, it's just a very small place in the middle of the jungle, maybe 8 beds. It took over an hour for someone to be able to find a piece of tape to be able to place, to hold the drip into place. So there's a real lack of medicinal material available. And so that's what kind of made me think about with this project as well. It's not about just one or the other. It's about both being available in terms of medicine, but then also knowledge systems as well, and how through photography could I respond to that as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm just getting my head around the initial experience of you going there and getting really sick, and then having to go, not just to go to a hospital in a foreign land, but in the jungle.
Yes.
And then we're like, didn't the traditional medicine work? Did they, did you take care of the spirits? Did all that kind of stuff happen? And the environmental conditions and everything else. After that, do you think, okay, this is too much for me, or no, I need to keep going?
That is a very good question. Yes. that there's a lot for me to comprehend after that first month there.
Yeah, I mean, that's intense.
It's very, very intense, yes. I ended up being in hospital for 2 nights and having to have days worth of injections in my bottom, which the community thought were hilarious. And I used to I had a bit of a crowd in the hospital when it was happening. And it still didn't go away.
Okay.
It only went away until I got back to Melbourne. So, I was forced with a lot of things to think about. But no, I didn't. I mean, I actually think it's quite a privilege to be invited into an area that isn't necessarily accessible to a lot of people. So I know that, Alex and Jeff also shielded me from a lot of things, so it wouldn't be too overwhelming because, it is so new and things can just get out of hand there quite quickly. But, after I came back from the first trip, Alex said that for 2 or 3 months he was calling back, clearing space in terms of talking to people, letting them know that I was going and making sure that chiefs and communities were okay for me to pass through as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I feel quite privileged to be able to go into these areas.
I mean, it's such a unique experience, I think, as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the work itself obviously is very unique, but even hearing about how the process you needed to go through just to be there to make it, that's not something that most people would ever have the opportunity to even consider doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really quite special in itself.
Very, very special.
So how long were you back in Melbourne before you returned?
I think I came back for about 10 months. And in that time, through a reflection period of all of these experiences that I had, and listening to people talk about what it means for them to lose their knowledge as well and their language. I've just then started to think about the Lumen Process as being a process that, for many reasons, but one of them, for the main reasons, is that the Lumen Process works well with the environment. So I'm not trying to force a photographic process in that environment. It actually works in harmony with being quite hot and humid.
Because you make them out in the air, don't you?
You do, yeah. So it's expired black and white photographic paper, and you use it in a cameraless method, like a photogram. So you've got your photographic paper, you place your material on top, and so this would be like a leaf.
Yeah. And
then I would weigh it down, put a piece of perspex on top and weigh it down with some rocks. And once it's taken out into the sun, what happens is there's like an activation and an enmeshing and kind of the material and the exposure starts to happen.
Yeah.
And it usually happens over a few days or a few hours. So that was one of them, was the environment. But then also I really liked that it was a slow process and it was communal. So the table was set up at Kanaka Village, purposefully right in the heart of the village, so people could come with their plants that they wanted recorded, but then also they could engage and help with the process as well.
Oh, wow, okay. So you didn't... Yeah, I mean, before I was thinking, okay, you went, either with Jeff or with Alex to the forest, you collected things, but it was I guess it was a community experience, or it was a community initiative almost.
Yeah. So the first time that we went into the forest, and that's when I got slapped. And then the second time we went into the forest again, and the community at Kanaka, there was one person in particular, Patrick, who was by Jeff's mum given the task to, lead the community in getting the medicinal plants, and he decided that it was better for me to stay in the village and they'll just go out and get what they wanted and bring it back, just because of the heat as well, walking around in that, and me not being so used to it. If I did that for quite a few days on end, I may get sick again.
Yeah.
And I particularly liked that as well because it's about, the community guided how the project unfolded.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I think, Jeff, you've mentioned quite a few times how the plants are like, it's an analogy to over-the-counter medicine.
Okay.
So
Generic.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So most of the plants are very kind of general. It's just like things that you as you grow up, you just know. The very basic, it's like Panadol.
Okay.
Over-the-counter drugs. And, there's some other plants that people would actually hold back and not give it out. Because it's
are they purely medicinal? Because when you were saying about growing up with plants, I'm thinking about having mint in the garden or basil and things like that you use in, for culinary purposes.
Yeah, not really for cooking, but usually, any minor ailments, like any illness that comes, is like, I'll go there and pick up this, leaf and...
Oh, okay. The closest I can think of is aloe vera,
Yeah, like aloe vera and, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there are some plants that actually, the real serious medicine men, it's their trade secrets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they wouldn't actually give it out.
Okay.
To say, look, this is because it's their thing. So whatever we have here is very, the generic, the common plants that...
Okay, so there's 14, aren't there? That's in the series.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. So they are not like the prescription drugs.
I think I really love that it is like the over-the-counter medicine as well, because it, for me, is kind of aligns to me being in that environment making work. It's like an introduction, it's a beginning of a relationship as well. It's not me going in going, I want, that plant that I've heard so much about that cures cancer, that's not my place.
But I think interestingly again that, it's, the villagers actually went and said, oh, well, this is, we bring this one for recording. And so it's just allowing the community to actually, decide on, what you're giving. And I think the other thing was the engagement, the participation and ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you select it? The village, I guess, selected these, or the community?
Yeah, the community just, they just kind of, went out into the bush picking up like, oh, this one is used for this one's for these. And yeah.
But were there any you thought, okay, I won't include these ones? Because thinking about it from an artistic point of view, aesthetically, are some better than others? So you just found a way to include all of them within the documentation?
All the plants are included in the book that were recorded at Kanaka Village, and 14 were made into photographic prints. And the reason being is, I think I just work in very small series to keep it quite intimate. And the way that I chose that was just the ones that resonated for me to be able to turn it into an artwork. Yeah. And also then it means that in the book then there's that kind of adds another context, that there's more in the book format as well. Yeah,
because the book's only a recent thing, but with the photographic work, how long did that take, to get to the point that it is now? That was over several journeys, so you spent more time on the island?
No, that was on my second trip.
The second trip, yeah.
Yeah. So, but, again, the way that this is, the way that I've engaged with the project and the community is, really respecting that things will happen when it's meant to happen. Yeah. And as someone that's from a Western culture, that can be very difficult to understand, where we're very much deadlines and need to get things done. And so sometimes it can be quite an anxious time. So on my second time, I was there for 3 weeks, and we didn't even get to Kanaka Village until I think about 2.5 weeks in.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So that was due to more sickness. So I got quite sick after going for a walk and got severely dehydrated, and I couldn't travel for a while. And then, cars not being able to cross rivers, so transport not being able to turn up. Alex, I was traveling with Alex, and so he had obligations to go to meetings, family village meetings, and so that had to be prioritized over it. There was also like a sing-sing as well, so a big you explain a sing-sing.
So sing-sings, this is when kind of family, somebody passes away, and then, maybe after 2 or 3 years, there's this big feast. It's a whole season where people actually blow panpipes. It's cultural singing. You sing through the whole night until daybreak, and then this is when you give out pork.
What's that?
Pork meat to all the people who turn up.
Pig.
Yeah, pigs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, so pigs. It's the ending of the morning season. But yeah, this again the exchange of the pigs is also about building relationships. So the building of relationships, but also the transfer of resources and land. So it's those things are very, very important in a culture.
Yeah.
So I think Kate happened to attend one of those. Yeah, the big feast.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was
A couple of thousand
incredible experience to be part of.
Yeah, so it's like war kind of cries. You have different groups all like competing and challenging and throughout the night, and you got like people with spears and they say they go around in circles.
Wow, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. So it's a pretty kind of very confronting, activity.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but the significance of that is one is building relationship between the families, from the person's paternal tribes and maternal tribes. So that, and also the transfer of land and resources between families.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So again, that is the basis of in terms of access to this work. It has to be supported by those kind of activities.
Of course.
Yeah. So it is pretty kind of layered.
It's very layered. Yeah.
And the thing is, especially in terms of giving, even for Kate coming in, give that access, you don't necessarily need kind of documentations in a form of agreements or whatnot in order to do work. The rituals and the customary kind of events that actually take place are very, very, I think, far more important than maybe signing paper documentations to give access.
Yeah, I mean, I guess how you described the community aspect, of course, that's you need to obviously be very respectful towards that, and it's that I think transcends any kind of bureaucratic exercise. Signing a piece of paper.
Yeah. So I think that has kind of, it's probably one of the it's a real big thing, and I think something that's also being lost. In a way, how do you actually manage relationships, between people and, the kind of work we do in the communities. So, yeah, I think the cultural aspect of community is very, very important. Yeah, and especially in terms of navigating, this work as well. Ensuring that community is happy and the spirits are happy. Making sure that, everything has to be aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything has to be aligned in order, for progress to happen.
I guess thinking about all that then, so was the initial plan to make a book?
Yes.
Yeah.
For Alex, it was very much two purposes, an exhibition and book. So the exhibition would be an opportunity for kind of exposure outside of, in Bougainville, but also mainly outside of Bougainville, that provides a positive recognition of Bougainville and culture.
Because have you shown the prints there, or they just saw the process and how it came about?
I have given prints back in form of a material panel. So that went back with Jeff, I think last year, was it? Or the year before? No, last year.
Yeah, last year,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then you showed it for the first time at the Photo Book Melbourne.
Yes, Photo Book Melbourne in 2016, and also showed it at Chapter House Lane in 2017.
Okay.
And then the other component was the book as well. So that idea of repatriation of knowledge through text and images in a book format, so it can go back into schools in CY, where I don't think is there any internet coverage? No. So it had to be into a book, book format.
Yeah. Because how is it? Because you're, I guess, in charge of the Kanaka Project?
Yeah.
Which is the village within the region? Or it's township?
So it started from the village, Kanaka Village.
Yeah.
So the Kanaka Project actually comes from the name of Kanaka Village. So this is where, this whole idea started. Of preservation, of, the natural habitats, endangered species of animals, mostly mammals, but also the importance for education, because the Kanaka Village is about 2 hours away from the nearest school.
Wow, okay.
And then you got to walk through treks and stuff. So that's pretty much kind of where I grew up, and as a kid, walk 4 hours every day back and forth from school.
Gosh.
So what happened during the time was a lot of my friends, my age group, didn't really, they just dropped out of school because the school was so far away, and which meant literacy within the community was very low.
What is the local language, actually?
Matuna. Matuna language. That's the Siwe language. But yeah, so a lot of people, just dropped out from school, and so I think one of the immediate things that we need to do is actually improve literacy, and so we built up a school. I think the school was the first project we did in 2014. I was still finishing off my PhD thesis at the time. So
and that was in Sydney?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Sydney, but I came up to Papua New Guinea, and I was working from Papua New Guinea just to finish up the writing. So that's when we started the school, and then I think towards the end of 2005, we had the conservation area all formalized. And, the plants actually came from within that conservation space. The Kanaka Project started from there. We got registered with the Papua New Guinea government as a community-based organization. But now the project is actually growing, and we've worked with the Australian Museum in Sydney on our research and conservation of endangered mammals. Also with the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund, and the United Nations Development Program. So the publication of the book is actually supported by the UNDP funding that we got. So again, it's the issue is on not just conserving like the trees and the animals, but also preserving that knowledge. And this is what Kate has been working on. Yeah. So I think the thing is, if we don't actually raise the awareness on the value of knowledge and preservation, particularly in the name of trees and stuff like that, is you actually lose the value.
Yeah, because I guess I've come to learn that each of the names of the plant
describes
is
the function.
also describes its function.
So, if you lose just lose loss of the language, you're potentially losing the whole body of knowledge and, something that could also be useful for science in the future.
Yeah.
So, but currently now the Kanaka Project is sort of expanding now. So we're also now moving into other areas, other districts. The initial conservation area that we started is about 65 hectares. It's pretty small, but the next sort of conservation area that we're looking at now is about 50,000 hectares.
Wow, okay.
So it's growing, it's getting big. It's going to be a lot of conservation, a lot of scientific research is going to be done in terms of those conservation of the endangered mammals. Currently, we're looking at 3 species that are actually only found in Bougainville.
Wow. Okay.
And they actually listed as critically endangered. Mm-hmm. And the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the Red List.
Yeah. What are the animals?
Yeah, animals, mammals. They are rats, giant tree rats, and bats.
Oh, okay.
So we have one of the world's largest bats. They're called monkey face bats.
Yeah.
They're actually found on Bougainville, on the only island. And then
they like this. It's their wingspan.
Yeah, with the wingspan, and their faces are
like for people listening, about a meter.
Yeah, not about a meter, but I think about 20 to 30 centimeters kind of wingspan.
Yeah,
about 50 or something. But the other animal is the giant tree rat. They're actually really long. Again, it's about they could become like about 50 centimeters long.
Gosh, a tree rat.
They're really big rats. The giant tree rats. They crack nuts. So 2 species of that we've actually found one within the Kanaka area in the lowlands. We were just lucky. We're looking for the biggest one. The only museum specimen is actually placed in Australian Museum in Sydney, and it was collected in the 1936 by a Polish priest. Okay. Who was a Catholic priest on Bougainville.
Yeah.
Who actually also worked as a collector of specimens, and so he was the one who actually captured the animal and brought it down to the Australian Museum. And it's the only known specimen, currently. So we're trying to sort of go back and look at the environment and see if this species is actually there.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of work we're doing, really sort of saving some of these animals. I think the other thing now is to look at, while we work on conservation, through scientific research and other things, also comes the question on use of art. I think how can you look at science and art as a way to communicate with people?
Yeah.
And really raising the awareness on the end of the environment. One of the things is, human economic needs actually drives a lot of the destruction on natural habitats. I think that coupled with, especially for a lot of remote communities like on Bougainville, there's very limited knowledge on environment, and also on climate change as well. Because the thing is, a lot of these communities are very isolated, with very limited information that goes on, and they don't really see we can look at the global context of the environment. So again, this is something that we could actually use the use of art forms to actually communicate some of these values to local communities, maybe through very, very subtle kind of artistic presentations. Not really confronting, these communities. So I think, what we've started, I don't know, maybe it could be refined in the future to really communicate some of these ideas in very soft, kind of non-confronting.
Well, yeah, it's very approachable, I think.
Yeah.
You look at the works, obviously they're quite beautiful the way they've been presented, and it's a really unique way of discovering this information. But then it does have that many layers that you inevitably have to read about and discover the community and the project and the environment and how everything kind of fits together. And it's a nice, as you say, it's a nice gentle introduction to what's going on in that part of the world. Yeah.
The other thing too with the Kanaka Project is to really have a very holistic approach. I think a lot of time, especially with communities in Bougainville, there's no specialization. Mm-hmm. Like in a lot of developed world, everyone is a specialist. Yeah. Because there's someone else who has other responsibilities. In a lot of these cultural communities, you need to know how to do everything. So I think it's a very good way on when you're looking at projects in these communities, you need to have a holistic approach, where projects need to meet, all different needs of the community. And also in Bougainville and Papua New Guinea, about 80% of the people live in these kind of rural communities. The bulk of the population. Yeah, wow. And there is very limited internet penetration. So information is very limited. And I think in a developed world, information is just at our fingertips, and sometimes we take it for granted that it's free and available for everybody.
Certainly.
Yeah. So that is that's one of the biggest lack that we have in these communities is information. I think to have a book like this, it's sort of codifying that knowledge into a presentable information that can be said and made accessible to a lot of people. I think it has a lot of different kind of uses. It's preserving knowledge but also it's introducing a new way of communication. Because moving away from just the oral way of passing on knowledge, it's information changes with when you're just giving it orally.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but the other thing too is maybe we could actually it could start changing a lot of thinking on in a lot of these communities. Especially when it comes to literature, people may be motivated to actually start writing their own stories. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe that's already happened.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily us doing, but this is a very good introduction to actually change perspectives. I think there's a lot more opportunities for writing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think it kind of creates a lot of potential and the opportunities. And even, I think, awareness, really, even like locally. If you're only used to living in a certain way and you're not exposed to new ideas, you don't know that they're available to you.
Yeah. And I think that's the other outcome that we're hoping for is for other people to also write their own stories. Mm-hmm. And write their own stories and even to create their own forms of art. Papua New Guinea is actually a very visual society. There's been a lot of traditional paintings, face paintings, and that has been our way of communication for a lot of societies and tribes. And I think with the modern education coming in, and we've just sort of focused heavily on maybe technology, like science, technology, engineering, and humanities, without really kind of reflecting back on our cultural history, where art has actually played a very important role.
Yeah.
And I think this project hopefully can inspire sort of the value of art. Mm-hmm. Because I think within a lot of schools now in Papua New Guinea, people are just thinking, I need to be an accountant, I need to be a lawyer, I need to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And so we're not given the opportunity for other young people who have those artistic orientations. So I think it is maybe a very important time to actually start this conversation and also to create a space for Papua New Guineans who are interested in this kind of work.
Yeah, I think it's also it also highlights the importance of creative expression.
Yeah,
even if you do want to be an engineer.
Yeah,
it's also nice to to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Look at things in different ways that you wouldn't otherwise.
So my work with the government has actually gotten me. I have an APEC project at the moment that I'm working on, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. So the forum that I'm actually under is the Policy Partnership in Science, Technology and Innovation. And STEM education has been one of those kind of, things that people within science and technology has always been pushing on, is the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM education. But in very recent, our last meeting with APEC, it's about 21 economies. There's a lot of discussion now on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Because I think there's a whole shift in thinking now that you cannot talk about science, technology, innovation without actually having some, creative background that art actually inspires. So, I think it's a very constantly evolving world that we're living in. I think it's important to accommodate a lot of these things, and I think putting this kind of work out there to inspire the way we think about the world. And also in terms of, how do we actually, invest? And I think for me, as a kind of coming from government and policy, is something that that has to be given the policy space for discussion.
Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add? Like how? Because you live there now, don't you, Kate?
I do. Yes.
Are you part-time in Melbourne, or you live in Bougainville?
We actually live in the central province of Papua New Guinea, and that's about 45 minutes outside of Port Moresby.
Okay.
So we live along the coast there, and I moved there in November. So on this project, Jeff and I fell in love and we got married, and this year we had two weddings.
Yeah.
One in Melbourne for the papers and
the formalities.
the formalities, and then a cultural one in Bougainville. So I've been in Papua New Guinea since November, but we've had some trying times with getting visas, so I've spent a bit of time down in Melbourne. But that's now my home, and so that's been again another learning that I've had to go through moving to Papua New Guinea. It's the commitment to, at least when you travel there for short periods, that you're going back.
Yeah.
But living up there, I don't have that luxury anymore. But I do, I love it up there. The people are very warm and very giving, and it's just such an incredible place to live and be in such a unique environment. But it's also very difficult to, I guess, witness a lot of the inequalities that happen up there.
Yeah, I think it's a very challenging place, and a lot of my friends have been like, what are you doing? So just move, go back to Australia, and you married there, and it's an opportunity, and I think it's for me, I think this project has really, I think we've talked about it all the time, is about the heart. It's really about following your heart, and kind of you kind of stuck with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically kind of what this project is really driven by. Is about purpose and why we are here. And so that I think that's why it's been quite difficult for us to make any kind of maybe sort of very rational, logical decisions. That's actually driven by the mind, because I think a lot of it is actually trying to find guidance from the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think without it, I don't think Kate would have moved up to Papua New Guinea.
Yeah. Because it wasn't like in terms of career and
yeah.
all this stuff. Like that's not necessarily a logical decision, but it was with heart and feeling like there was something up there, and I do feel like that's the place where I'm meant to be for at least a couple of years.
Yeah.
I've learnt an incredible amount about myself being up there, and it makes living up there, I feel very lucky just to be able to wake up knowing that I'm healthy. I've got
food.
I've been able to have an education.
Yeah, I guess it puts life into perspective.
Yeah, very much so. So it has really centered me in a way that I'd never would have been able to imagine. And that's because, it's a very difficult place to live for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can believe it.
Yeah.
And I think, I think Kate has kind of done, so much, like, the repatriation of, information back to the community. Mm-hmm. So I think we initially made about 500 copies. So, half of it is going to be distributed back into schools. Mm-hmm. And there's something that we're doing it free of charge. Like, it's not going to be sold. Mm-hmm. It's kind of giving back. And this is an opportunity for kids in CY and Bougainville to actually read about their own stuff. And it's a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, I think Kate said this is the second book ever to be published in the local language.
It is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, I couldn't imagine only ever having one book in my language, and then now there's a second book. That must be incredible, especially for children and people.
Yeah, a lot of people are excited about it. It's like, we'll I think once Kate comes out, we'll kind of, start maybe in November, look into kind of distribution. Yeah. And also, I think the other thing is we're going to be working in partnership with another NGO who actually, that's actually supplying books to schools. So that's, again, we're going to be building partnership locally.
Yeah, wow.
So then, we give the books and they sort of distribute the books through their network. That school has supported about 8 schools in CY district alone. Mm-hmm. And they've built 2 library books. They're currently building 1 at the moment. So giving these books to this foundation, it's called Rara Foundation. Rara means hope. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the CY language. So that foundation is really concerned about literacy, and also the shortage of library books is very big. A lot of schools don't have libraries and the books to go in there. So that's what they do, distribution of books from Australia.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this is gonna, copies of the book is gonna be also contributed towards that. And I think probably that's why kids are up there. It's, it's the inspiration, to help. And I think we're really happy, not just because, Kate came and married me, but, she just didn't come to Papua New Guinea and did photography and running away.
Yeah, I think I guess that's the problem all the time with the kind of Western way of going. You go in somewhere, I'll help them dig a well, and then all right, see you guys.
See you guys. I'm off. I think Papua New Guinea, in that sense, has been exploited for a very long time.
Yeah,
and continues.
And continues to even to this day. A lot of stuff is done, and a lot of knowledge is also created in Papua New Guinea, both in medical and science. Mm-hmm. But, up to now, the communities are actually not even, nothing goes back to the community in terms of benefits.
Yeah.
So I think with this project, we really want to do things differently. That information is provided back to the community, the ownership. And, any future work that comes out of this book, in terms of scientific research, has to be very well guided ethically, so that there is shared benefit that comes out of this work. Yeah,
I think for me as well, just touching on, because when you do live up there and experience how outside people do come in and may work in a way that is quite, fractured and coming with preconceived ideas and not allowing the space for local people to contribute.
Yeah.
It's made me really think about now, like my next body of work, about thinking about, the way that we inhabit not just in micro communities, but our new macro community. So Earth as whole, and that holistic approach and that connectedness that we have between each other, and then also thinking about how we can pull people up as well.
I think it's about kind of rising up together.
Yeah.
And I think one of the inspirations that I sort of wanted, with the Kanaka Project, was like I could have easily gone and maybe like, I'm going to build, do a business and whatever. But I kind of decided, I think I need to bring education, raise the kids up. I've gotten, especially, traveling, having lived in Sydney, US and Canada, for about 10 years before going back, and with a PhD, and you walk into this village and there's this real huge gap, you're very highly educated, but, your community is on the other end.
Yeah.
How do you actually close that gap? So that has really been the inspiration, is actually to elevate people, so that we, everyone can actually, we live in a place where it's minimal sort of gap. So, I can't come down, but I need to raise it up.
Yeah. No, I think you're very right. Like education obviously is the way to do that.
Yeah.
That's one of the better ways really that you can empower people to make change.
Yeah. So that's kind of been the inspiration. It's sort of continuing, and we, other communities are actually inviting our organization to go in, and I think they're also interested in the work that Kate's doing. So
had a couple of people contact me saying, "Hey,
we have some medicinal plants."
Yeah, but I think there's a lot.
It's really actually. I feel so humbled actually that now that's happening.
Yeah, and I think in terms, I think Kate can. Yeah, I just gotta remember that she's my wife.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like I was telling her, like a lot of these people are kind of asking. I'm just gonna say, hey, look, leave my wife alone. Yeah, but I think where there's need, there's also opportunity for beautiful work. Yeah.
And I think even having it, I guess, through art and through creative expression, it's a nice bridge or a nice conduit between what's happening in one part of the world and what's taking place in another. Yeah. It does make it a lot more accessible.
Yeah. I think, it's, I would just say, I think there's a really kind of, interesting future ahead. Like, also about like, it's about meaningful art as well.
I mean,
I'm slowly I might start doing some art myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about, another thing I'm thinking a lot about now is that with digital technology has been the rise of digital cameras. And it makes me think about what the role of a photographer is in our contemporary society. Spending that amount of time educating, yourselves and like postgrad and degrees and exhibiting. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is that perhaps, there's an opportunity that our work can, create a kind of social change or an awareness. Yeah. While at the same time still doing contemporary, art as well. There's an opportunity there for it to shift. That then it becomes that we're not just depicting places.
Exactly.
Everyone's can record their own stories, but those that have the privilege to be able to go and spend so much time learning a trade, how can they use that? Photographers use that trade to give back in some way.
You can see Recording the Medicinal Plants of CY Bougainville at Jarvis Dooney Galerie, Linienstraße 116 in Berlin Mitte until Saturday the 17th of November 2018. Check the links below for installation shots if you can't make it to Berlin yourself. We still have copies of the book available, all the proceeds of which go directly back into the CY community in Bougainville, Papua New Guinea, specifically to build a water tank next to the local primary school. Thanks everyone for listening, and see you next time.